is the best time of the year. It only happens once every 4 years. It feels like holiday season, although this year's a little different. This time's a little different. It is holiday season this time of the year. It is the World Cup. And welcome in to OddsChecker's World Cup betting show. We are Golden Goal. He's Martino Puccio. He is a football fantasy writer. He covers all gambling for The Athletic. He's also the host of his own podcast, State of the Play Pod. Martino, this tournament feels weird because it is kind of weird. We will get into that, but it's just good to be here. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I'm so happy to be here. Obviously, it's a little different with these circumstances. Used to nicer weather outside over here in New York, as opposed to the wintry mix that we're about to get. But I mean, it's still the World Cup. A little odd to kind of prepare for it in this manner, considering like we're in the middle of the season for clubs. But I'm so excited, and the second we get that first kickoff on Sunday, it's going to be amazing.
It really does feel weird. And, there's a little bit of skepticism. We'll talk about that in a second. But we've gotten here and the excitement has just come pouring back. We have 4 weeks of some of the best soccer or football you're going to see ever, really, on the planet. The best stars aligning here for the World Cup in Qatar. There has been plenty of controversy. We might as well address the elephant in the room now, Martino. We still have those 4 weeks, 64 games. But things are a little weird. Obviously, we're playing in December because Qatar is way too hot in the summer to be played. Do you see this really having a huge effect on teams? I mean, we've seen some injuries, but how are you going to plan this one out?
I think that it has affected a lot of these teams already. I mean, like especially in the first group with Sadio Mane, he's already been announced out for the Netherlands game, and that's a massive loss for them. That's arguably the best player in that group in general. So the fact that he's already not playing in it, we saw Christopher Nkunku of France already get injured yesterday, and he's out for the entire tournament. I think. It's a little strange because we're kind of sitting here saying we had a crazy condensed schedule and some of the better countries have players that play across multiple competitions, whether it's the Premier League or the Champions League or just whatever top league they're in. It's going to be interesting to see how those teams handle something like that. And it's been going back for a while now. It's not like we're just sitting here saying, oh, it's just this season. We also had COVID not too long ago. So we've been forcing in seasons for the past 2.5 years or so. So it's all going to catch up to them right now. And that 2 week period of a break that we're on right now is still shorter than what we usually have where we play in the summer. We have like a month-long break or even 5 weeks, depending on what club or league you root for. So I find it fascinating. And that just means more opportunity to win lots of bets.
And it has been plenty controversial. There are a lot of interesting rules about how the World Cup will be observed in Qatar. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about what we're going to see on the pitch. Martino, you have covered soccer for a long time for The Athletic, and especially from a gambling aspect. For people who are joining the soccer betting world for the first time, there is a lot of value to be had game in and game out. Just tell people how you kind of approach it on a game by game basis, what you look for.
Yeah, so it's obviously a totally different sport than what we're used to in the States, right? Like constantly we see guys that are able to be substituted in and out and they could rotate like that. We see that all the time in basketball, and that affects a lot of props. It affects totals and all those things. Obviously with football, soccer, we're dealing with, a couple of substitutions, then those guys can't go back on the pitch. And it's a lot harder to score in this sport out of any sport that we observe over here, out of all our top ones. But at the same time, we have a lot of narrative based bets that constantly get put in wager wise. So we're kind of seeing it all the time. I see it in Serie A and Italy's league. A lot of people go with familiar names because they don't follow as closely. So if you're more of a casual bettor as opposed to someone who bets religiously, if you listen to stuff like this, we can give you sort of the takes that'll help you out, because there's a lot of money that's puts on teams that never really, win anything. Like there's a lot there, like Belgium, for example, right? I don't mean to harp on them, but they're really like the Los Angeles Clippers. How many times do we hear that they have all these great teams and people are going to be betting on them to win something, but they don't even get to a final, much like the Clippers? So for me, I always love looking at stuff like that. What does the general public love to go on? Because I love fading them because it's no disrespect to them. America is full of the casuals, especially when it comes to the World Cup. So when you see someone zig, I love to zag.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? Throw some strays at the Clippers, right? I think for me personally, playing with Belgium kind of caps out at just picking them on FIFA when you're playing international play. But that's what we're here for. Before we get into each group and kind of give you our best bets, talk about top goal scorer, top player of the tournament, best keeper, and obviously who we think is going to win, and of course all your USA props. I want to hear kind of what your biggest storylines that you're watching in this tournament are, because for me it's kind of, besides just how weird this tournament is, it's this kind of feels like Brazil's tournament to lose. They are the betting favorite across all books. There's been a lot of fluctuating odds across other teams. We'll talk about that too, but you agree with me? Is it kind of their tournament to lose here?
It's really difficult because it all depends on these paths, right? Because we could see a potential semifinal between Argentina and Brazil, who have been two of the main favorites for a very long time, and that's the kind of risk you put in there. I think on paper, only France really matches them in terms of goalkeeper, backline, your midfield, and even your forwards. So in a sense, you could say it is Brazil's to lose, but at the same time, they were the ones who lost in a final at home in Brazil to Argentina, where they basically had the same team at one point. So for me, I don't love looking at a team that has so much to lose like that. That's a heavy favorite in a tournament that we've never seen taken place before, right? Because this isn't a casual, hey, we're playing the World Cup in the summer again. We have all these extenuating factors that we have to take into account. So yeah, Neymar's healthy. Yeah, Gabriel Jesus is playing well for Arsenal, and Vinny Jr.'s probably their most valuable player at this point. So for me, I don't know. There's so many different things. I wouldn't say it's Brazil's tournament to lose, but I would say I do think it's fair to call them the favorite. I don't think it's anything outlandish.
We've talked about this group already, so we'll start in Group A. You got Netherlands, you've got Senegal, you've got Qatar, and you've got Ecuador. That is obviously the first match we're going to see on Sunday between the host country of Qatar and
Mhm.
Ecuador. We talked about it. The biggest storyline here seems to be Sadio Mane not being there for the game that may define this group, right? I mean, right now, Netherlands, for good reason, is the favorite to win it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, the Netherlands really do this thing where they're struggling in other tournaments and then they show up, right? In 2014 in Brazil, no one really expected to do what they did because they missed the Euros. And then they end up doing something like that. For me, I think they're just defensively one of the best teams in this tournament. I think they're by far the best defensive team in this group. Some people question where their goal scoring will come from, but I think Memphis Depay is enough, especially for this group too, right? And you mentioned this is the group that is deciding one game. And that's basically Senegal versus the Netherlands. And if the best player in the entire group isn't going to be playing in this, it's really going to take a massive effort for them to get a win in this. And if Senegal doesn't end up winning, I don't see how they win this group. I think Netherlands will take care of the other sides here, Ecuador and Qatar. I don't really see them as a threat. So if Senegal is going to be able to win this, they're going to basically have to hope for, a draw in this match, or they're going to have to win out in the other games and hope the Netherlands drop some points. But the likelihood of that happening is very low, in my opinion. So I would say that whoever wins this game wins the group. And that's pretty crazy to say, but that's kind of how it's going to have to go. And again, for Senegal, do they have enough without Sadio Mane to pull off a win? They're going to have to play very defensive. They do have one of the better center backs in this entire group as well, and the entire tournament in Koulibaly. And again, they're AFCON champions. They've been to some of the toughest matches. So to say like they can't pull this off is anything outlandish. But again, it's just these two that could win
Mhm.
this group. I don't see Ecuador. I don't see Qatar doing this. And even if they do advance, they're not going to be winning this group, right? Like if you
Mhm.
want to say like, oh, I'll take Ecuador to qualify, that's something that's okay as a long shot. But in terms of winning this, it's basically the only team with somewhat value is Senegal. But without Sadio Mane, I don't really see how that's going to happen.
And you mentioned an AFCON champs too. Let's get one thing out of the way is that Senegal does have a very strong squad, regardless of if Mane is there. But you've said it a couple times. He is the best player in this group. He's one of the most talented strikers in the whole tournament. And again, without him, even if he's able to go for the other two matches, that might make a difference. But with what the Netherlands can do in their back three, especially with Van Dijk there are some questions about who's going to be playing keeper for them. That has kind of been a point of contention. But I kind of side with you here. I just don't think that Senegal has the firepower if Mane can't go. Just looking at some odds for this group, again, we mentioned that Netherlands is the favorite. I'm looking at right now to advance. If you take it straight, Netherlands and Senegal, you can get it at plus 225. That's probably your best value. So you're not really seeing anyone challenging Senegal for that number two spot, and you're pretty locked in on Netherlands for the one, huh?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the beauty of it, right? Because if we're too worried about all that juice that's on the Netherlands, like minus 195, like that's I would only take something like that if it's parlayed with another group or like another
Hmm.
team to qualify out of it. But you get that type of order right there because if you just strictly like the way I view things, if I just go through the group, okay, who do I like to advance? Netherlands and Senegal. Okay, we narrowed it down to two teams. Now we just have to talk about what we think is going to work in terms of the order of that. And we just mentioned if they don't have Mane, how are they going to score on that defense? Maybe there's a howler from the keeper, but if you're confident that it's Netherlands, Senegal, there's no reason not to take that plus 225, right? It's just it's something that your ideology aligns with, and the odds are in your favor as well in terms of value. So you always jump on stuff like that. And if you lose, so be it. You still went with your instinct and your gut.
Mm. And it's a moral victory, at least. We're not here for moral victories, though. We're here
Yes.
for big money signs. And, we'll warm up with Group A. It's a shame that Mane at least won't go for game number one. But Group B gets really interesting because you get a rivalry that is as old as time. And as old as time, I mean the last 250 years. The U.S. and England in a group together. And even better, we are going to get a match between these two that's going to be played on Black Friday here in the US is when it's going to be played. Obviously, I love it. I love that, with all the weirdness of this tournament, that at least you have a day that most people don't work. They can sit down and watch what should be a really fascinating match. I don't know if the US has exactly the
Mhm.
firepower offensively to pull out a group win. England is the favorite and a pretty heavy favorite. Is there a chance here for some magic?
It's a tougher group in general than some
Hmm.
people would want to admit. Iran had one of the best defenses out of any side that qualified for the tournament. Wales, if you watch MLS or you were following anything, it doesn't matter. Like Gareth Bale just always shows up, and all it takes is
Hmm.
just one opportunity for him. Daniel James is still a quality player. If Aaron Ramsey, for whatever reason, horrendous in club football, but he could step up in a tournament like this. And that's the beauty of the World Cup too, right? That some people, if people are casuals and don't watch as much, there's so many players that step up in a tournament like this that never do anything in terms of club football, which always makes it funny to me because you're like, where was this all year round when we were watching you? And now all of a sudden you show up in this tournament. But that's the beauty in betting this kind of stuff. For USA, listen, there are a lot of things in terms of rivalry and that they want to show up, and if there's one country that Americans want to prove that they could play on their level with, it's England, right? There's no one else that we could talk about in a historical context in terms of rivalry and even sport. And we saw it in 2010 when we drew them, which was it was still one of the funniest things that you would see.
Mm.
And you could argue this is one of the more talented young American sides, but that's also their downfall, that we don't know what they're going to do. They haven't played in a tournament like this because they missed it in 2018. So for me, I don't see them winning this group. The only chance that they have to do that is, winning in this and hope England drop against Iran or even Wales. Because again, Wales has that dynamic with that rivalry as well. So England's going to be getting everyone's best game. It's not like that there's no extenuating circumstances surrounding, with narratives in this one. So for me, I think it's really difficult to see what that second place team is because I think England's going to win this group. And if you told me you picked anyone else across the board in terms of second place, I wouldn't really argue with you because it's that type of a group. I think it's going to be that crazy.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the U.S. is projected to finish second, and they're at plus 600. and Wales is not so far behind them at plus 650. Are you
Mhm.
putting, maybe a sprinkle of money on the US not even making it out of the group stage?
I can't. I can't. So I'm a Mets and Jets fan. So like obviously over the years, like I bet against us. I bet against us live. I bet against us like if we're going up against
Any
like a
chance you
team.
get?
No, seriously. Like this year when the Braves, were dogs for the division, I'm like the Mets are probably going to mess this up somehow. So I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to bring that type of negative energy to the tournament, which is my point. So I'm not going to bet on USA not to advance. Um, but yeah, I listen. Wales could easily do this. They've made good runs in Euro tournaments, and they do pretty well in that factor. But also like they're delayed with that. I think Iran is probably the most disrespected team by far in this
Hmm.
group. Their striker is one of the better and more reliable ones in this group. You could argue second best to Harry Kane. Out of all the strikers that we have in this group, I think you could point to Iran. And if they're stout defensively, you don't need to have the greatest defenders. You just need defensive organization. And if they come with defensive organization, all it takes is one opportunity. And if you have the best finisher in that game, so if you go against Wales, you go against the US, those teams are not putting away their chances, but they have the best striker and they're playing stout defensively. It's kind of like, why can't they pick up points? Why can't they position themselves to finish second? And I think that's something that people are undermining and undervaluing. So I would say if it's some team that's like an England, Iran type of straight finish like that in first and second, that's something worth looking at. But again, if you're a US homer, I understand where you're coming from. You want to take USA second in the group behind England.
Not exactly what you want to hear going into the tournament, but I mean, look, we've talked about it. The talent is there defensively. The talent is there in the midfield. The talent is there in the wingers. It's how you kind of define that striker position against, you talked about it, a stout Iran team. Now let's move on to Group C, where Argentina is a heavy favorite there. They also have Poland, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia there. Is this Argentina's group?
Yeah, this is their group to lose. I'd be stunned if they lose this one. The streak that they're on currently is obviously 35 games, I believe, unbeaten across all international competitions. There's no
Mhm.
one hotter and playing on a higher level right now. It's on paper they're really solid in terms of talent, and also their group isn't that great in my opinion. Poland really one of the more disappointing teams at Euro 2020. Saudi Arabia, I mean, I think they're happy to be in the tournament. Maybe if they get a result, that would be fantastic for them. I don't think they're as awful as the numbers are indicating. And then again, Mexico, this was one of their worst qualifying groups stages
Mhm.
prior to this World Cup that we've seen, especially in my lifetime. And again, I just don't think quality for these other three teams to topple Argentina exists. It really just doesn't. And to me, that's kind of something I want to stay away from. Now, the interesting thing is who's to qualify out of this group. I think those are the more interesting bets because if you want to go with that dual Argentina first and then you want to take Poland or Mexico second, those are some interesting stuff to look at. Or if you just want to look at straight bets where it's, hey, I want to take Poland to advance, that's something you look at and consider taking. But as far as group winners go, this is Argentina, and I'd be stunned if they don't win this one. I think they have one of the more favorable groups. So for me, if you look at stuff like Argentina, Mexico plus 225 or just Argentina, Poland plus 175, those are stuff I would look at. But again, as far as winners go, I think this is one of my layups that you have to take.
Yeah, I probably lean Argentina, Poland straight there at plus 175. I mean, we
Hmm.
talked about Mexico just coming in on a just disappointing form nationally. Tata Martino, who's their coach, had kind of labeled himself public enemy number one. I mean, you lose twice in a final to the U.S. That's not going to bode well for you. And it's not like Poland is exactly bringing just a lot of talent to the table in terms of being able to keep pace with a squad like Argentina, but you still have someone like Lewandowski who has that, he
Yeah.
has that experience. He has enough caps that you can, have that kind of last resurgence. He's obviously on the back legs of his playing career. For this Argentina squad, I mean, this is someone we're going to be talking about later in the show too as a potential, obviously, tournament winner. This is an interesting squad because you kind of came from 2014 where obviously
Mm.
that is a heartbreaking loss. Then you come back in 2018, and it doesn't seem like even a comparable team. And it seems like, wow, yeah, 2014 was it. And all of a sudden, you talked about it, 35 unbeaten coming in. If they go unbeaten in their group matches, they'll actually pass Italy's record for most consecutive unbeaten matches.
Yep.
This seems like a team where, again, we've said this before, it's kind of now or never for this Argentina team. But I agree, this is about as much of a layup as it gets for a group winner.
hmm Oh, for sure. And again, this is just top to bottom. They have a complete squad. Like
Hmm.
2018, Messi had to drag them just to get into the tournament because he gets no help.
Hmm.
And the federation that was like lined up there, rotating managers. I mean, listen, no disrespect to Diego Maradona, but they take him in 2010 to go to that sort of World Cup. Right now, they have everything that they need. They have guys that work off the ball to try and create more chances and give the ball back to Messi, who's still, in my opinion, the best player in the world. And if you just give Messi those chances, you have good finishers, you have good people off the ball. They have the best center backs that they've had in a while. They've had their best goalkeeper that they've had in a while, and they get that hump of winning Copa America. Winning Copa America for Messi in Argentina was like LeBron James winning his first championship. The amount of stress and pressure that man had just to simply win something internationally was weighing on him. And now the fact that that's off of his shoulders right now, you could see the way they play, and that plays into a part of them going 35 straight unbeaten, because it's
Hmm.
not like some of these matches that they've played have been easy, right? You're going into Brazil in a final in Copa America to take down on paper the best team in that conference, and
Hmm.
they end up winning that, not conceding a goal. Angel Di Maria still finishing at that level. For me, it's just yes, this is the Argentina side that should have the capability of winning this. I think they're better than anything since 1986.
Oh, that is a, a bold statement. Let's move on to Group D because we are going to
Yeah.
talk about Argentina a little later in the show as well. And the team that'll probably come out of here, we will talk about as well. They have a wide range because of some injuries. It's France leading the charge at minus 195. Denmark is right behind them at plus 300. And then we probably see the biggest gap, I think, in any other group. Australia and Tunisia both at plus 3,200. So this is maybe not the best group to bet, the two teams to make it out. We talked about it. France does not have their probably two best midfielders in Conte and Pogba. And, they have a team with a lot of experience to kind of plug in, but there's some big names to be missing from a big tournament.
Their entire midfield from 2018 is gone.
Hmm.
And like, we have some additions for them that have made them a lot better. Teo Hernandez is one of the, if not the best left back in the world. They add him. They get Karim Benzema. He just won the Ballon d'Or. Griezmann can still perform for the national team. And Mbappe's even better than he was 4 years ago. The midfield is of question, but Adrien Rabiot, who plays for Juventus, is having his best season in a little while. Maybe it's because it's a contract year. I think that plays a part into it. But listen, he's performing at a level. Chouameni, Kamavinga, they play at the biggest club in the world. They performed in the Champions League, and they continue to do so. So maybe some of these absences aren't as great as we would like to think, but obviously losing Conte and Pogba, they're two of the best French midfielders ever. So obviously that's going to play in a role here. But we're talking about Group D, right? Like, the only threat here is Denmark, and Denmark made a semifinal at the Euros. And they're going to have Christian Eriksen for the rest of this tournament. They didn't have him, obviously, due to that scary incident at Euro 2020. So, Denmark really, it's not the craziest thing in the world. But if I were to say France had a tougher group like they did at the Euros, I could say,
Hmm.
hey, maybe France drops this, but I think they're gonna batter Australia. They're gonna batter Tunisia, and Denmark. Even if it's close, I don't see that type of goal differential coming from the Danes. So for me, I wouldn't really look at anything else in this. And even
Now,
then, betting the straight, 1-2, I don't kind of see how much you could take away from this.
Now, what if I told you that at the last three World Cups, the defending champion
Yeah.
did not make it out of the group stage? Does that do
No,
anything for
yeah,
you,
I know.
or
I know all that stuff. I have an
still
Italian
not
background.
enough, huh?
I have no, honestly, no. I don't buy into these, curses or jinxes or anything like that. Like, each tournament's different. We didn't have repeat winners until repeat winners happened.
Hmm.
We used to have teams go deeper into a tournament. Where we never used to have a tournament in the winter. So like, why, like, there's so many like different things. It would take us abject disaster for France not to make it out of the group. I mean, if you want to go off of curses and jinxes, I mean, feel free. Like, not to say you are, but if you're a bettor, you want to do something like that, hey, go ahead, feel free. But this isn't really one of those years, in my opinion,
Yeah,
and not with this team.
this is probably if you were going to throw away, kind of trends and jinxes, then it would be the World Cup. Obviously, so much changes in 4 years. Let's move on to the de facto group of death. Spain right now is a slight favorite to make it out at 105. Then you also have Japan, who's become kind of a trendy team, and then Costa Rica, who might be the worst team in the tournament. So it drops off heavily, but Japan has been getting a lot of love recently.
Yeah, they have, and I kind of don't agree with it. I think people are kind of disrespecting Germany a little bit. I know they kind of been underperforming and underwhelming in the past two tournaments, but I do think that kind of comes from a redundant voice in Yoki Low. So getting that
Mhm.
new voice in there as a manager really helps for them. I still think they're a good defensive team. They were also in the group of death. Let's not forget that England's hosting at home in the Euro 2020 tournament, and they had ample opportunity in that game too. So it's not like Germany was anything really poor in that. So I think you kind of get this new, fresh perspective for them in there. They still have tons of talent. I don't really think that they should be the dogs in this group. I think they could definitely win this. This is one of the best values for a team to win it. I know it's just plus 115. It's nothing crazy, but I would love taking, if you would love to say, hey, Germany most points as well, plus 105, Germany to win the group, plus 115, or you want to interchange Spain and Germany in whatever order you want to advance out of the group, that's something that's great to take, even if you feel strongly in one direction. So for me, that's kind of something I love. And again, just for Spain and the reasoning for not maybe picking Spain, for me
Mhm.
strictly comes from the goal scoring perspective. Do
Yeah.
they have that? That was the whole difference in why they didn't win the Euros. Did they have enough? Did they have enough quality? Yes, I would say so. They took Italy to penalties. That's what it comes down to. But did they have enough firepower to advance out of that? I'm not sure. I do think they have the best manager in this tournament in Luis Enrique.
Mm.
So if you chose to go in either direction here, I mean, this is where you can make out pretty good in terms of order and even winner.
All right, we have a lot of individual bets to get to. We have a lot of still value left on the board. Let's just finish up our kind of path through these groups here. We have Group F: Belgium, Croatia, Morocco, and Canada. Canada seems like an interesting team. This is probably just a Belgium and Croatia race. Belgium is the favorite. Kind of don't love them, right? We heard a little
Hmm.
earlier in the show.
No, I mean, I'm tired of the charade, to be honest. It's no offense to them. We keep on having them number one in the FIFA World Rankings. That absolutely mean nothing, by the
Yeah.
way. So, like, if you're better, please do not look at that kind of stuff. It just doesn't matter. Belgium's been number one forever. They're basic. Oh, hey, if you're a college basketball better, just Gonzaga. There you go.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
and again, I love Canada. I don't know why Morocco is ahead of them. Morocco,
Hmm.
not to say they're lacking talent. Canada was the best team in over here in CONCACAF. They have tons of talent that players that play at the top level. Tejan Buchanan is another very underrated player. We obviously
Hmm.
have Jonathan David, who's the best ever Canadian striker. Like, this is the best Canadian team to ever exist, and we're kind of having them last in this group where they've played, against some pretty good sides. Belgium and Canada plus 850, best value. Best
There you
value.
go.
Best
Okay.
value in this group. And I love Croatia, and it's easily you could see the two of them advance with Belgium and Croatia. Don't get me wrong, even that one's a good one to take too, plus 160.
Mhm.
But if you really want to talk about a long shot that isn't so far fetched as a long shot, Belgium and Canada, it's not absurd. And plus 850, I think it's worth something looking at. I'm not saying go and bet it, but if you're going to see something that could possibly turn out, like, this is it. If Canada is going to be disrespected like this, and if you value the type of talent that they have, like, go with it. To me, it's not a ridiculous thing to place money on.
And we have 62% of odds checkers betters picking Canada to not make it out of the group stage. So most people do not agree with you. Group G is going to be a one horse race. You can kind of wave the white flag already. Brazil is in that group at minus 220, Switzerland at plus 600, Serbia right behind them. Who are you taking? You taking Serbia or are you taking Switzerland?
I think Serbia and the Netherlands are the two best dark horses in this tournament.
Mm.
I think again, Serbia finished ahead of Portugal in their group. Portugal, one of the favorites for this tournament. Serbia, so much talent across the board. Sergej Milinkovic, Savic, Dusan Vlahovic. And again, this is just a battle-tested squad that really has everything on all fronts. And again, when you're getting where we could say Brazil and Serbia plus 240, Serbia to advance is another great bet to take as well. For me, it's kind of looking at Switzerland. Switzerland's really good. They advanced out of Italy's group, obviously in the qualifier. I know something like that is horrible, but again, they made a great run. They knocked out France out of the group. A lot of it kind of feels like they step up in these tournaments, but do I see them repeating what they're doing? Are they that good of a squad from top to bottom? I would say no. If there's a team in here that I'm kind of off to see not advance, I prefer Serbia's odds across with like the straight Brazil, Switzerland, to advance out of the group, Serbia just to qualify. And yeah, it just for me, Serbia is so good, and I think they're really going to be a force to be reckoned with this tournament, especially if they make it out of the group.
And our last group to get to, we finally got to Portugal, who was the favorite at
Mm.
minus 140. Uruguay right behind them at 210. You also have Ghana and South Korea in this group. You expecting any funny business? Or is
I,
this going
I
chalk?
I think this is absolutely some funny business. I mean, look at Cristiano Ronaldo is calling out everybody within his club in
Yeah.
an interview that he wasn't greenlit to do, and then on top of it, one of his teammates is one of Manchester United's best players, and we saw that kind of friction in that locker room where you see Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo kind of have that awkward handshake. We've seen it with João Cancelo, who plays for Manchester City, is one of the best fullbacks in the world, kind of have this weird, approach with Ronaldo in training. And on top of it, Fernando Santos is one of the most stubborn managers in this entire thing, refuses to play players that he should be playing. Diogo Jota not playing in this tournament as well. They're going to be losing him. Rafael Leao is going to be one of the best creators that they'll have. So having him in there is great. On paper, Portugal should be one of the favorites for the tournament. But every other thing that matters to have things work for them is not going well. And I think that's obviously very volatile for them. So again, Uruguay always performing in tournaments. They have so many talented players. They're able to actually win this group. This is maybe out of all the dogs to try and pull something off. I think Uruguay is obviously there. Don't disrespect Ghana. South Korea, Kim Min Jae, one of the best center backs in this group as well. Son, obviously going to be back in time. We'll see how he does. He's been very inconsistent this season. So for me, I think this group, I mean, literally anything can happen. If you tell me Portugal wouldn't advance out of this group, I wouldn't be that surprised because they're
Wow.
that poorly run at this point. But I do think they advance. But I don't think they're guaranteed to win this. If you like
Interesting.
Uruguay, my favorite out of all the dogs to win a group at plus 210.
Yeah, they have a lot of firepower in the attacking third as well.
Hmm.
Let's get to some individual awards here because this is everyone's favorite thing to bet on. You have the Golden Glove, you have the Golden Boot, you have the Golden Ball. Again, the Golden Ball is for the best player, the Golden Boot is for the most goals scored. Let's start over on the Golden Boot. I kind of like, and if you haven't noticed from the jersey, there's some favoritism, but not biased. I think that's how I like to phrase it. Lautaro Martinez at plus 2,800 to win the Golden Boot. Neymar has good value at plus 1,400. Mbappe is the favorite, I believe, still, or Messi is right ahead of him. Mbappe at plus 1,000 as well. Where are you kind of leaning here?
Well, again, like so, just for I guess for the casuals that don't bet this stuff, it's always who's going deep into the tournament. You have to have your
Mhm.
select countries that you think are going deep, right? Whether or not you think someone will win it is a little different. So if you have your set amount of teams, we have your Argentina, your Brazil, and your France, right? Okay, so we look at those three, for example. These are the players that we listed. Now we have to look at who's in the attack of these teams, right? Which side has more players that have the opportunity to score goals? France is so deep. They have the best striker in the world in Karim Benzema playing next to Kylian Mbappe. Is he going to be taking away some of those chances? Does Olivier Giroud get in there, take away some of those chances? Antoine Griezmann. There's so many different players that can score goals for France, and we know that midfield isn't as great. So how many goals will there be scoring as well? I think
Mm.
that affects it. I don't love the value on Mbappe. Obviously, he's plus 1,000. This is arguably the best player in the world. I'm not telling you not to bet him, but as value goes, I don't think it's insane. Neymar plus 1400. He's basically playing as the number 10 for Brazil. So he's going to be supplying Vinny Jr., Gabriel Jesus, whoever they put on the right, if it's Richarlison, if they're going to go with Rafinha, right? So if they go with players like that, I think Neymar is going to be a little bit more of a facilitator. Can he finish? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, if there's so many options on these sides, it scares me away from that. And as Lautaro Martinez goes, I don't think you're wrong with the favoritism. I've done it in a couple of videos and stuff I've written about. How many goal scorers are on Argentina right now? Not many, right? Especially compared to the past where it's Higuain and Kun Agüero. We're really just looking at Lautaro. The only difference with Lautaro is this. The guy accumulates and scores a lot of goals. He does great off the ball, but sometimes his finishing is just so bizarrely bad that he can't finish some of the tap-ins that you're like, you have to finish that type of stuff. Then he'll score one of the best goals you'll ever see, and you're like, all right, this is kind of annoying now. But again, to the point of Messi being a favorite for this, Messi's again more of a facilitator with this. Can Messi always score goals? Absolutely. This is the best player that I've ever seen in my life. He's going to continue to be that, but I think he's going to be facilitating more. And if you have the best creator in world football on your team and you have a player with plus 2,800 in Lautaro, why aren't you taking that? And again, Argentina is one of the favorites. So if we think they're going to be going deep into this tournament, that's something that you have to look at. That's someone you have to take.
So we've kind of already talked about the golden ball. It's kind of an association. You're going with Neymar at plus 1,200. There are some intriguing names here, but we talked about just best player.
Yeah, again, best player, and for people that might not know this as well, you don't have to win the tournament, right? Because we see finals MVPs, Super Bowl MVPs, they always go to the winner. 2014, Messi got golden ball. Right? You don't have to be, and I believe it was Luka Modric in 2018 as well. You didn't win the tournament, so you don't have to win the tournament to be this player. So again, Neymar plus 1,200. This is the best player on Brazil. He's going to be able to score goals and assist the most because I think they have the most firepower. So combining that, a deep run into the tournament, that's why I love Neymar. Obviously, you can go with Messi if you like. And I see you have someone else, so I'll let you go talk about that person if you want.
I mean, look, Kevin De Bruyne has good value to win the award. Again, it comes down to you need a little bit of length in the tournament at that point. That's kind of just like he's too good of a player to not talk about him type of award. Before we wrap things up, we want to tell you about some of our favorite props when it comes to the U.S. squad. Obviously, a lot of you watching us are from here, and there's nothing more fun than rooting for your home team in the World Cup. Martino, you have a couple of USA props. Why don't you run us through some of them?
Yeah, so points I like 5 because why not? I think there's the opportunity for a really tough draw against England, and I don't think that's out of the question. And when you're going at plus 1050 with that, get a win against either Wales or Iran and then draw one of the others because I think they'll be a tough game. I think that's definitely feasible. It's not completely out of the question. Again, if you're scared of the loss against England, I think 4 is another way to go. Brendan Aronson, I think, has been the best player in form out of all the Americans. I think he's even better than Christian Pulisic right now. So plus 900 top goal scorer. And you know what? I'm being positive. Round of 16, exit plus 270. I know that's kind of negative in a sense, but I do have them getting out of the group, and I don't think they'll be going any further than the round of 16. But hey, if you have them to advance, plus 270, pretty good.
Okay, so we have one game, obviously, opening day on Sunday, and we have 3 games, including a U.S. game on Monday. I'm going to give you a game and ask you one thought or one thing to look at here, because I know you like to gamble on things a little closer, even on match day, which might be a little hard with 5 a.m. starts. But we have Qatar and Ecuador opening up on Sunday. Anything of note to watch there?
I don't know. I think this is obviously the toughest game to bet in the entire tournament. It's the first one because it's the only game of the day, which is so annoying, by the way. Because we have to wait the next day for this. But it's interesting because the hosts have this tournament. There's so much energy behind them, and the whole crowd is invested in it, right? And then there's obviously Ecuador here. For me, I think there is the opportunity that we see overs in this. I think there's just so many opportunities for mental lapses in this because of the pressure of this match. So anything like over 2.5 goals, a goal within, sometimes I like to bet in periods. So like, any goal between the first and 15 minute or the 15th to 30th minute. I think those stuff are kind of worth looking at. And again, the host to score first. Hey, what if Qatar gets a goal? It's not even to, say that Qatar is going to win this game, but to say they score first because of all the emotions behind them, I think
Mhm.
that's stuff worth looking at. But again, it's obviously a very dangerous kind of match to bet. So I just like to enjoy watching it if I can.
8 a.m. match, England, Iran. Talk about good Iran defense. What are you looking at?
This is so tough too. I mean, I guess as far as things go, I think just Harry Kane getting on the score sheet, just anytime goal scorer type of bet, and then England to win, parlaying stuff like that. If you feel strongly about a goal scorer, and even if you wanted to take England and the under in this, because I think there's two pretty solid defenses as well. So kind of looking towards that stuff.
Netherlands and Senegal to probably define the group. The next match at 11 a.m.
Yeah, so I think the Netherlands and Memphis to goal, and then even both teams to score no. If you want to get in those kind of combinations like that, I think it's going to be a low scoring type of match. I think the Netherlands are going to pull through with this. Obviously see again. I love doing goal scoring wins. So like if you say, oh, I think the Netherlands are going to win 1-0 or 2-0, those are obviously plus money bets that you could look at as well. So those types of things again, wait till lineups get released. I think that's one of the most important things that you should look out for stuff like this.
And the big game at 2 p.m. It's the U.S. and Wales. If the U.S. has any chance to win the group, it's got to start with game one.
Yeah, baby. This is I want to win with this. I think Team USA to win this one. I think this is the most winnable and easier matches for them to kind of win. And it's not easy. Don't get me wrong with this. Daniel James can definitely cause them some issues. Wales isn't totally invincible, but if Team USA needs to grab 3 points, and I think they can grab 3 points, in terms of play styles going against each other, this is the one. And I think there's going to be a lot of goals in this one. I think there's a potential to see 3 or 4 goals. Um, because I don't love either defense, and I think that's obviously going to be something that's going to play into a part in this one. So if you like overs and if you like USA to win this, I would definitely look at stuff like that.
And Martino, I can't let you leave before asking you the $1 million question. Who is your winner for the tournament?
Listen, I know I had Neymar Golden Ball. I've been on them for a while now, for a couple years, because Messi is my favorite out of any player that doesn't play for another team. So I don't have a jersey like you do, but I do think this is the time for Argentina. And by the way, the value dropping, I mean, plus 1,200, we're talking about behind England, behind Spain, behind Germany. There is
Mhm.
no reason, considering the value and the form that they're on, that you shouldn't consider taking Argentina. Messi finally gets his World Cup, so plus 1,200.
That shot up on BetMGM in the span of a couple days from plus 1,000 to plus 600. You heard it from Martino. You can get it at plus 1,200 on FanDuel. There is no reason to not use the OddsChecker grid and get your best value. Martino, I will be talking to you every day after the matches wrap up. Talk about what we saw, talk about what's coming the next day with our best bets. So if you don't like soccer, it's going to be a long month for you. Might as well get on the trend of the best tournament in all sports. Martino, it's been a pleasure, and I'll talk to you next week.